Right.
Yes.
Okay.
That's gonna be funny because that's gonna be the first thing they say.
All right. Like, hold on.
But we're live. We're live. We're live. We're live. We're live. Hi everyone. Happy New Year. And welcome back to Behind the Stanzas with Nicki D. And we have a special treat for you on today. I have CC Speaks in the building, and she is our first out of town guest. Tell
Oh,
everybody where you from. I'm so excited.
Akron, Ohio.
Yes. Can you give them tell the people a little bit about yourself?
My name is Cece Speaks. I am a poet from Akron. I'm born and raised here in Ohio. I've been doing poetry for about 2 years now, and it's really starting to take off. I have a book called Woken Word that I published, so I'm excited about that. And yeah, just starting to, really get into this thing. So I'm excited to be here to talk to you tonight and kind of share as much of my story as I can with
Yeah.
you.
Do you want to kick it off with some poetry?
I can.
All right, so I'm gonna let you have the stage. And without
Okay.
further ado, the poetry of CC Speaks.
All right. So the first poem I'll do is actually the first poem that I ever posted on social media that kind of gave me the validation that like, okay, people are feeling my poetry. So this poem is called Broken Woman. And it was just written from a place of, women loving too hard sometimes and kind of forgetting about themselves in a relationship. Broken woman, lift up your chin. I don't want you to cry no more. I know you said ride or die, but I don't want you to die no more. Forget your own passions. You don't look to the sky no more. You're like a beautiful bird that won't even fly no more. Come on, sis. Show us that wisdom that you didn't learn from school. You claim you set your bar high. This man is breaking all your rules. You call it sacrifice and loyalty. I say you sound like a fool. Besides, he doesn't even know what he's missing. His foundation don't need a doormat. He needs your strength and intuition, the type of support to inspire his ambition. But you forget who you are. So you identifying him. Got you out here acting desperate like the pickings out here are slim. But the path to true love can only come from within. God's been trying to wake you up, and the alarm he used was him. Girl, you are blessed. I'll say less. But stop letting these men cause you distress. Let it go, renew your mind, and let God handle the rest.
Yes, that was amazing. I love your tone, first of
Thank
all.
you.
Like, it's very interesting to me, interviewing different poets and just seeing different poets and how everyone has their own unique style of delivery. And I love your delivery. Your tone is like so soothing. It makes people want to join in. Different poets and how everyone has their own unique style of delivery. And I love your delivery.
Thank you.
Your tone is like so soothing. It makes people want to. So, can you give us a little talk to us a little bit about the inspiration behind that piece?
I have the sound thing happening again. This is frustrating. It's, I don't know. I can turn it up on my computer though. I have the sound thing happening again. This is
Yeah, I
frustrating.
think the computer is like a little bit delayed.
Yeah, I'm gonna just mute my phone.
Yeah, I think the computer is like a little bit delayed.
Yeah, it is delayed too. Oh my gosh. I think
We're gonna get through it though because this is what happens with technology. But COVID can't stop the art, so we're still here.
it is delayed too. Oh my gosh.
Can you just give us a little bit about the inspiration behind that piece?
Okay, now it's working again. Yes. So the inspiration behind the poem that I just recited was I was actually going through a heartbreak. I feel like a lot of love songs and poems come from that place that when you're going through a hard time, you like find yourself like in a really low spot. And I just had it like I kind of wrote that poem for myself to kind of remind myself like, yo, what are you doing? Like you know you're great, and don't forget about who you are for another person, or like, you're so focused on this person, and you've grown as as a woman, and you claim you set your bar high, but this man is breaking all your rules. Like, I was telling myself, like, you have a demeanor, like, I'm not putting up with this or that, but like, you start having feelings for somebody and you start lowering
Right.
the bar. So it's just, I kind of wrote that poem to, like, uplift myself. And then one thing about, being a human, like, we all kind of can relate, especially, as women. Like I said, a lot of us love hard. And I feel like, excuse me, with me being able to, encourage myself, I just like to encourage other people going through the same thing, to remind you, like, listen, your life is not all about a relationship. And to remind yourself, like,
Mm-hmm.
listen, lift your chin up, get yourself together, focus on you, and everything will just kind of fall in line. And I really do believe that sometimes heartbreaks or hard times are scheduled in our lives to kind of wake us up. And I feel like that poem kind of came from that.
Exactly. Yep. That is true because I know a lot of people, and I know me myself. I used to. You're so focused on this new relationship, which isn't like in and of itself necessarily a bad thing, but you don't want to lose yourself, and you find yourself giving too much of yourself in a relationship when,
Exactly.
hey, White Phoenix, when that's my little boo.
Oh,
Hey, babe, thank you for watching me, for watching us. But you don't want to lose yourself in a relationship because I feel like any relationship that's causing you to lose yourself isn't right for you
exactly. I
anyway.
totally agree with that.
So, can you tell us, because I know like every poet and artist, they have this underlying mission, and like though like myself, I have this underlying mission that Shy Girl Speaks. Even though I write about different topics, what would be your mission if you had to give an answer to this question? If you had to tell someone which the focal point of your poetry is?
I would say two of my main purposes with poetry. One is to inspire and encourage people who are going through hard times, like, from, like I said, whether it be, growing up a certain way or feeling low about yourself, and just to kind of encourage people at really hard places, and kind of, remind them that playing the victim really isn't going to take you anywhere in life, and that you have to really just to kind of like going through it, my own experiences and putting it into poetry to be able to uplift and inspire other people. And then the other thing is to kind of paint a perspective, because I have had the benefit of growing up in a lot of different situations, which has really been a blessing to me, with me
Mm-hmm.
being not only biracial, because that really isn't what it's about, but not as far as like ethnicities growing up different. But I grew up around like different ends of the spectrum and different things. I grew up in people in the streets in this household, and then I'm going to this, grandparents' house, and
Mm-hmm.
everything's all like everybody has money and we're going on trips, and then I'm over here and everybody's selling drugs, and then I'm at this house and people are drunk and fighting. So I think with that, with having so much so many different perspectives growing up that way, and also like working around a certain demographic and growing up around a certain demographic, I
Mm-hmm.
really have a broad spectrum of perspective. And one of my things that I like to do with poetry is to give people perspective,
Yeah.
like with being able to be empathetic. I can feel for other people, their situations. Poems I make about things I haven't even been through, but I've seen it, I've been around it, or it's just to kind of give people like, oh, that might be how they feel, or that might be where they, what they went through. Or
Yeah.
like one of my poems is I don't even know if I named it, so I have a hard time with naming my poems, but it was
Oh my God,
basically,
me
do you?
too.
Isn't that crazy? It's like
Like,
you have a whole poem. When I wrote my book, like I still don't know all the names of my poems in my book because I had to name them. So I'm like just flinging off names, like I'm gonna call this. But I did write a poem, and it's about this is when I actually posted, and it's about two boys named Tommy. They're made up characters, but they're born the same exact time in totally different worlds. And it just kind of gives you a perspective, like you're quick to judge this person, but look what he's been going through since literally the day he was born, as opposed to this kid who, not, I mean, good for him, that he wasn't born into that. It doesn't make, you know, you don't frown upon that either. But
Right.
just to give people perspective. So that's really my two main focuses with poetry.
Okay. Yeah, I think you hit on some good points. We about judging people, because
Hmm.
I feel like, especially I feel like 2020 had brought it out that like we judge so much that we don't know, and there was
Yeah.
so much that came out in 2020 that we realized like, oh, there was a lot of stuff that's happening behind
Yes.
closed door, and like people only show you what you know what they want to see.
Exactly.
So I feel like that you're too like your poetry is awesome. That's why
Thank
I
you.
reached out for you to get you on there, because when I first heard you on Ambition, I don't know if the first time, no, I think the first time I heard you was on the Poetivator
The big one.
conference.
The
Yeah.
conference.
And I
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, she's so dope. And then when
Thank
I
you.
did my first open mic, when you reached out, I'm like, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Then when I came the idea to do that, I'm like, yo, I definitely have to get you on here, because I feel like a lot of people need to hear your poetry. A lot of
Thank
people
you.
need to know that message, because they out here judging people because of some circumstances they had no control over. Like you
Exactly.
can't control what family you're born into, the poverty level that you're born into. All you have to do
Exactly.
is like, you don't have to become a product of your environment. But like
Exactly.
kids, they don't have that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
you see it all the time, and it's just like I said, I don't know if it's because I'm super empathetic, which is a gift and a curse, or if it's
mm,
because I've literally grown up since day one around so many different perspectives of life that it's like unbelievable. Because I know a lot of people, they grow up around one thing, and that's
right.
all they know. Like their mom's family is this way, their dad's family is similar, or they might not have a parent, you know, family involved, so they only grow up around their one family, and that's
Mm-hmm.
all they see. But I've seen broke, poor, drugs, drunk, like domestic violence, people getting along, like everything. It's just
Yeah,
like everything.
that's gonna give you the ability to connect with a broader audience in your writing too. Because
Yeah,
like even reading your book, it's like I feel as though it's something in there that everybody will be able to connect, not just male, female, or
yeah.
young, old. Like I feel like the way she writes her poetry. So get her book.
Thank you.
Gets her book. I promise you, you won't be disappointed. But it's literally something in there for everyone. Like everybody can have to take a message out of that book, and that's what you want in a poetry book.
Hmm.
Now, speaking of poetry books, how did you go about deciding what pieces would be included in the book and what pieces would not be included in the book?
Just kind of with what you said, is like, is it relatable? Is it something that I want to present myself as? You know, because I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you're a writer. I don't know if you may. I have a couple poems that I would probably never perform, but it's just like it's funny, it's fun. It's just might be a little ratchet, whatever. But it's just kind of different than what I would present to the world. So mostly all the poems I had at that time. There's only maybe 3 or 4 poems that I've actually written that I probably didn't put in a book unless they weren't finished. Unless I had poems that weren't finished yet.
Yeah, I'm always like curious for poets who have books or in the process of writing books to know, maybe for myself to narrow down because I know that was my biggest problem with my books is like because
Picking.
I felt like every piece is so dope and they need to go in the book.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like, but my book, it's only like 42 poems or something. So it wasn't that many. There was a couple that I finished shortly after I wrote the book, and I was like, dang. But I'll just put it in the next one. But
Yo, I
do
feel
you
like
have
that be
any?
my problem with finishing books is I know you gotta have a deadline and I'd be like, oh wait, but I want this piece to go here,
Uh-huh.
but no.
Do you
Then
ever
you
have
should be
trouble
like,
like
you be like, you
finishing?
know, you can write another book, right?
I
Everything
know.
don't have to go in that.
Do you ever have like with your writing process? Is there ever like a part of the poem that gets you every time, or that you feel like personally, like you said with naming poems, sometimes I have a hard time ending poems unless I start at the ending. Like sometimes I start with the end of a poem.
Yeah, sometimes. Whew. So when people ask me about my writing process, it's kind of hard because literally I can give you like 3 different pieces and they were all written the same way. Like Sneaky Link, that was written all in one sentence. Like like
Okay.
all in one sentence. Like I wrote that like that.
Yeah.
But that's was because I was pissed off.
Mm-hmm. You had
So
the
when I
fuel.
write out of anger,
Yeah.
I tend to write all in one sentence. But I don't know because then it's a lot of the pieces. It's a lot of pieces where it's like I be having a hard time to finish it, and then I find the
Mm-hmm.
inspiration. Like
Yep.
right now, literally right now, I'm wrapping up trying to write my fourth book. Hopefully, it needs to
Go
get finished by
ahead,
this
girl.
week. So, but I have pieces that I'm like, I really want it in there, but it's like it's not there, and you don't want to force it because when it
Yep.
force it, it
It's
becomes
not
really
the same.
rhymey. Like
Yeah.
it was one of my books. I don't know which one it was, but it was like the words was like really rhymey. Like, don't get me wrong, I feel like the quality is still good, but it's like you don't want to be too rhymey because then people feel like they're reading Dr. Seuss,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is good for kids learning to
Right.
read, but for adults,
Yeah.
not so much because it get a little annoying at times. And it wasn't until I was listening to another poet that was doing it, I was like, oh Lord, do I sound like that? I'm like, oh
Right.
no. But like, I feel like sometimes us as poets, we get so caught up on the notion that we have to rhyme because people don't feel
Mm-hmm.
like a poem is a poem unless you're rhyming. When it's like, no, I'm a poet, so a
Yeah.
poem is whatever I say it is. Like
Exactly.
definitely what time I'm on now. Like, oh, you don't like the format of my book because I thought I was the author and I
Oh
thought I
yeah.
determined the format. Like,
Interesting.
this
Like,
is
oh,
my show.
right. Exactly. When you write your book, you put it how you want to.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
I feel like that's important. That's an important message for artists of all kinds. Like, don't put yourself in a box because when you put yourself in a box, it shows. It shows in your work. Like, I was
Yeah.
so stuck on making my poems rhyme that I kind of I probably definitely dummied it down for my audience. When I say this a lot that our audience need our authentic voice,
Yeah.
not for
For
us to
sure.
try to put it in a little box because we think that's what they. Here's
See,
somebody else just said she love rhyming.
I like it, but I feel I know what you're saying. I like to switch it up too, but I think too something I don't want to say struggle with, but I guess maybe I did was like you like what will people think of me, and I know I have people that follow me on social media that are like family members or this or that,
Oh,
but it's like,
girl.
listen, I cuss, okay, and I don't cuss in a lot of my poems, but even the poem I posted yesterday, I've just made that poem yesterday and I was mad. So it was, or upset, shall I say, disappointed in our country once again. So it's just like, but I have to say, these are the words I'm going to use. And it's like, you have two options. You can like, skate along and don't watch it. Or
This is
like,
really funny because literally tonight at 9 o'clock, me, Ambition, and Christina is having a conversation about this on Clubhouse because all last year, like people who know me from my childhood has been burning me out. People who know me from the church that I went to they really been burning me up.
mm-hmm.
Like,
This
and
is
it's
who
like,
it's like who I am though. I've been cussing since I was way before I should have been cussing. But I'm like, this is what I do. Like, this is how I speak. And I'm not saying I can't find better words. I'm a poet. But this is the words I'm gonna use to express
but
what I'm
I
trying
feel
to
as though
say.
like we all like what makes a word profanity? What makes it cuss?
I was just thinking
What makes
about
it
that
profane is
too.
because someone else is telling you that it's a profane a word
Yeah,
because of the power that you're giving to the word. And I feel as though
exactly.
we're deaf at artists. We like people who knew us from our childhood. They have to remember there's a difference between Nicole that you knew than Nicki D the poet. And people,
Absolutely.
you can't don't tune into my stuff looking to see the Nicole that you was growing up with because that girl is long gone.
Exactly. I was just saying that to my best friend. I said, well, there's some guys who dated Cece, but they didn't date Cece Speaks. Like, yeah, yeah, you
Exactly.
ain't
Like
never met
you
me.
dated Nicole. You didn't date Nicki D because
Listen,
Nicki D would never allow that.
okay. There's a whole new, that's something else. It's just the beauty and looking back on how you used to be. I have a poem called that, like I used to. And just to look back on what you used to do is just beautiful.
Exactly.
When you have growth, that is a beautiful, it's one of my favorite things actually. Just to know. Like if you know, you know.
So, do you got another piece you want to share with us?
Sure. The other poem I was planning on sharing is called The Purpose of My Pain. And it's
Ooh.
kind of, exactly how it sounds. What it's about is like being in a place where you're just looking for all these things to make you feel better and realizing that nothing is actually helping. So it's
Oh,
called The Purpose of My Pain.
okay, let me get off your stage.
Okay. I searched high and low. Still, no progress was shown from the deepest love affairs to drugs that had my mind blown, and I still felt incomplete. I bought pets, I had sex, I tried celibacy, and even with nobody touching me, I still felt out of touch with me. Then I found a true love, a bond so tight, feeling like I finally got this right with no ending in sight, and still, somehow I laid awake in bed at night. As my frustration started to arise with no directions, no guides from my emptiness, I tried to hide, but my pain was inside. And as my pain got so deep, it brought me down to my knees. I finally heard God speak. He said, "You can't fill your voids because you're not incomplete." And all this time I spent searching, I was looking for me. See, my heart's been locked up, but only I had the key. And on my journey to self love, I've finally been set free.
On the journey to self love, I finally been set free. Girl.
The sound thing's happening again, but thank you.
Oh my gosh.
It's after we get off the screen and then get back on, they start doing it again.
Oh
So
gosh.
stupid.
Playing. But
It'll come back though.
they're definitely loving you in the comments.
Thank you.
The last one. So can you tell us a little bit more about your self love journey?
More about what is it?
Your self love
Oh, my
journey?
self-love journey. Okay, so yes, absolutely. Um, I definitely am a person who came from just like being able to like look back and reflect of having low self-confidence. There's been times I had really low self-esteem and I just didn't I don't say I didn't like who I was, but I just wasn't sure of myself. And I used to like ask all my friends like or sisters like what should I do, what should I do, but it wasn't until I went through like God talks to me through bad relationships. The way God has reached me most is through terrible relationships, and the two I won't even call them terrible relationships. The two biggest, they were bad, they ended up kind of being bad relationships, but they taught me the most, so I'm thankful for them. But I was in a really bad relationship when I was like 22, 23. And after that is when I started doing some reflecting of like I always asked my friends what should I do. I always, reached out to outside sources, but I never asked myself anything. Like I never considered myself. And I didn't even
Mm-hmm.
realize that I didn't know myself. So after that, I just started being like, well, what do I want to do? And I got real, I got good at doing that. And I used to would go to the store and I feel guilty if I bought myself anything. And I'm so now years later, almost 10 years, almost 10 years later, I'm like opposite. Like, I don't even, like, I buy my friend something. I'm like, I want one too. I give myself something. And that feels good because I know there was a time where I guess subconsciously, I didn't think I was worthy of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like to be in a place where you realize you're just like not accepting who you are, you're not confident in who you are. And when I started to love myself for real, like my life is just not the same. Like it's I want to say it's crazy, but it's just awesome. Like when you can go from a place of like not being confident in who you are, letting people come at you sideways, talk down to you, always been kind of a shy, timid girl, to being like, what? I walked out of a job of 5 years in May because my boss came at me sideways and I didn't even have another job to go to at the time. And everything worked out. I ended up working that next Monday because God is good. But still, I worked for him for 5 years straight. I caught off once because I had the flu. And he came at me sideways and I walked right out that job. And I know I wouldn't have done that when I was younger. So to be able to you reach a place where you protect yourself. Like I have my back, like I have my sister's back. But a lot of people don't realize you kind of look past loving yourself sometimes. Well, I know I had. And to reach that place of self-love, you just don't. It's just like it's the most beautiful feeling. And I hope through poetry or interviews or whatever that I can encourage people to really get to know who you are and then fall in love with that person. Because when you're being your authentic self, that's when everything flows naturally out of you, and people reciprocate that and they love you because you love you. Everything is a reflection of who you are. I
Yeah.
believe.
Yes, that is true. And then it was the whole getting to know yourself for me, because I feel like that was like similar to my self love journey, because I realized that I didn't know who I was. Like, I knew who I was through the eyes of other people. So when I would look in the mirror, all I would see is what other people would expect me to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized that once I stepped away from that, I didn't even know who I was staring back at
Exactly.
me in the mirror. And I feel like a lot of people I know, as they get into those 20s, those late 20s, is they're realizing that,
Yes.
like, who you was through your childhood and all through like your teenager and all that, it's just like
Yeah.
that wasn't your true self. So we find ourselves going on this journey, and like you said, sometimes it takes, it's unfortunate that it takes a heartbreak or that troublesome relationship to bring that out of you. But sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you have to really lose yourself to find yourself. I'm a
Exactly.
believer of that, because you don't know what's not there.
Exactly. And I think God, well, that's why even like in my book, it's called like Woken Word. Like I went through situations that really woke me. Like anybody that's had a spiritual awakening will understand what I'm saying. Like it's not one of those all stay woke conspiracy type things. It's like, no,
Right.
I'm present. Like I am more conscious than I was before. Like I realized that life, like it's just the things I tell myself, like life is always happening for me and not to me. So any
Mhm.
situations that happen and come up, I used to be super anxious, especially as like a little girl. The smallest things I would be like stomach bubbled over. Like I'm just so anxious. And to be so, like, to grow, I don't want to say grow out of that, but go through that and research and, meditate and grow, like just find ways to not be the victim and be like, I can fix this. And to get to a place where life is happening around you, the world is falling apart, literally. Like
Right.
this is crazy. And
And
to
it
be,
seems like it's always something.
it's always something. And to know again, like I feel like my just being best friends with yourself and loving yourself, to know like, girl, the old you would have been acting like freaking out right now, losing sleep. And to be here and to be like, everything's okay. Like everything is, I'm just going with the flow. God's in control and it's out of my hand. Control what I can control and it's out of my hands. And I'm in such a peaceful place. And I'm thankful for everything I went through. And I'm really also thankful for my persistence in figuring it out. Like that's one thing about me. No matter what I've been through in my life, I always be like, okay, what do I have to do to get better? What
Yes.
book do I need to read? What do I need to research? What do I need to work on? Like, because that has really gotten me to this place. And I would encourage anybody to do some soul searching and self-reflecting, because when you get to this place of peace, I'm telling you, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I
It's
see,
really
like you
beautiful.
over there glowing.
Thank you. I'm in a very peaceful place. I'm so single. Like it's not about it. I'm not in no, beautiful relationship with a person, which I will be one day and all that. But it's just like this is self love here. Like I am in a very peaceful place, and
But
I'm
listen, you
thankful
have
for
to
it.
get to that place of self love, because even if like say if, because I know a lot of people be like, oh, I want a man. When is a good man gonna come? But if you don't love yourself, how can you really set expectation for that other person to love you? Like,
Exactly.
how do you even know what love is supposed to look like? And I feel like that's why sometimes us females, well, sometimes males as well. I don't want to be sexist.
Yeah.
So both males and females, sometimes we find ourselves and getting into these relationships that we have no business being, and because we're chasing love when we really should be chasing the love that is within
Exactly.
before
You're
you can give
looking,
that love to somebody else.
trying to extract that from somebody else, and that's gonna drive the relationship down the rails too.
Yeah,
I've
because
been
you're
there
going your
before.
expectations, like your that person, you're gonna be putting so much on that person that they can never deliver. And
Exactly.
it's not saying to lower your expectations, but like I'm like the person that I want, like I don't want my man to be my peace. I
Yeah.
find peace within
Yes.
myself and he find peace within himself. That's why we work together. Like
Exactly.
I'm not looking for him to complete me.
Exactly. Exactly. It's beautiful. That's a beautiful place to be in, and that's what my poetry mission is about. And no matter if I'm talking to people, just having a conversation with somebody, or if I'm saying it through poetry, like I really wholeheartedly want everybody to experience self love.
Yes.
Yeah, I really do.
Cause
I
like
don't want
I feel like it
anybody.
makes everything better.
Girl, it's life.
Like when
So
you love yourself, you're full of yourself. You're full, like you know that what you're doing, you were meant to do. So it doesn't
exactly.
matter who say, "Oh, you cuss too much." Oh, I don't like this bar. Okay, well, it's not for you.
Yeah.
Like that's the
This
place
is
where I'm
about
at
me.
in my art because I used to like so many times I used to like not put out certain stuff because I didn't know what people was going to say, or I'm not going to touch on this topic because people will be like, "Oh, what you doing that
Yeah.
for?" Now it's like I put out what I put out. Some of it is maybe for you to grab, some of it
Yeah.
may not be for grab. And if you don't like any of my pieces, then that's fine because you're not my audience anyway.
Exactly, exactly. Because even like I don't want to. I don't consider myself a political person. However, a lot of stuff that happens is very blatant, and I
Hmm.
speak on it. I have quite a few poems where I speak on it, and I'm not ashamed of that because it's blatant. Like I'm not one to go back and forth with people, and I said that in a poem that I posted yesterday. Like I'm not gonna argue with anybody about this. Like it's blatant that we're treated differently, and if you can't see that,
Yeah.
then you're choosing not to. So I do. I expressed my frustrations with that through my poetry. It's just like whatever you're feeling, whatever you feel passionate about. I feel passionate about the fact that they got us messed up. Like it's not right.
Right.
So I don't know, just with stuff like that, I feel like whatever touches your heart for a reason. Whatever
Hmm.
you're passionate about is, I think, that's connected to a higher source or a higher mission for your life. And that's why it resonates with you and why it feels right to you. So if something feels right or if something feels wrong, speak on it if that's what's
Exactly.
placed on your heart. And who cares if people get pissed off? Because my message is maybe you need to get pissed so you can hear what I'm saying, or maybe you just this isn't for you.
Yeah, or maybe just because like some pieces I have is like okay, if it does nothing but start a conversation, if it does nothing but plant the seed, it's doing
Yeah.
its job.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And I've heard things that might have been planted, seeds that might have been planted when I was younger, but maybe somebody older talking to me, and I'm like, okay. And then years later, I'm like, now I get it. And I
Right.
think that's what a lot of parenting is about. Like when you get older and you remember stuff your parents told you or grandparents told you, and you're like, makes sense now. So I think like this might be something I need to speak on, and it might not resonate with you today. But down the road, you might be like, now what were you talking about again? And I'll remind you because this is a message that is gonna hit you when it's supposed to, if it's supposed to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, can we? I want to talk a little bit about your transition into like wanting to become a brand because I know you're not just a poet. You're a brand. You're a mentor, and I know you have a lot of stuff going on. So, what did that transition look like?
Well, honestly, it's still happening. Poetry. Okay, so I will say personally, I've always kind of felt like I wanted to be an inspirational person.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew it would be through poetry because honestly, I didn't know I was a good poet. I didn't know that until 2 years ago, maybe. Like I really didn't write poetry. I would write it here and there, but once I posted it on social media and I got so much feedback, I kind of got more into it, and it made sense to me that this is the platform I can use to do what that's been in my heart. I didn't know how I would do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like here in the city, I have had like a mentoring program with younger girls because my heart does go out to younger girls, and a lot of that is because of stuff I went through when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to encourage girls who are going through hell at home that listen, that doesn't have to be your life. Like that is like one of my big missions, but also just to help people in general. So with poetry being something newer to me, it's like, okay, so it's poetry is my gift. That's how I'm going to get my message out to the world.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, I'm just capitalizing on gaining momentum in poetry and
Yeah.
starting to I'm in a process of building a brand, and kind of just I like to kind of keep it free, like that's not really the word I'm looking for, but just kind of let it happen more than, I mean, like, obviously I'm going to be proactive and like, okay, I need to set this up and do this and do this. But I'm kind of also just seeing where it takes me because I just feel like it's a mission for my life because it's literally not something I knew I was going to be doing. It's not like a dream I had. It's kind of like a gift that came in. I don't say came into my life that I discovered I had. So as far as building a brand, I look forward to putting out actually merchandise this year and, you know, working on my book and getting in the clubhouse with people helping me like yourself, kind of because I'm so bad with technology usually. So it's kind of just one of those things where I'm seeing like, let's see where it takes me, but I'm definitely being proactive and, you know, setting goals with it and everything like that.
Yes. That's great. And I look forward to all the amazing stuff that you're going to do in 2021, your
Thank you.
merchandise and everything else, because I know it's going to be awesome.
Thank you.
Last question before we wrap up. What advice can you give to a young poet that's looking to put herself out there, that has these poetry and they're like, I don't know if anybody really gonna be feeling me, that's still in like that nervous shy girl phase?
I would say to just do it, to face your fears and just do it because people don't regret what they did do, they regret what they didn't do. Most of the time. I'm sure there's people that regret stuff they did, but most of the time it's things that you didn't do. And we have one life to live. So I feel like you might as well do it because, you know, like you just put yourself out there and don't, I mean, I think inherently we have a fear of rejection, but if you look at realistically, you post a video, you put a poem out there, and people don't like it, are you going to die? No, you're not going to die. It might feel like you're going to die, but you're not. So I feel like you have to look at your fear of rejection logically, and I think we all have it, and I do too. Like, I hate to ask people for stuff. This is stuff I'm working on my own. Like, I really hate asking people for stuff because, and I don't know if it's I fear rejection, but at the end of the day, if they say no, I'm not going to die. If I post this video, I still get nervous. I've had my video that got the most views was 10,000 views. I still get nervous when I post videos. I still am like, are people gonna like it? Are people gonna reject it? But I have to tell myself, just do it. If they do, and that poem, it might be a poem that gets 5 views, but those 5 people might, 4 of the 5 people, maybe 3 might have loved that poem and it might have done something for them. And that's what it's about. Like, you have to keep your reason why in mind and don't really worry about what everybody's thinking. And I seen a meme that stuck with me. I think I seen it last year, but I love it. And it said, like, I don't care about what people think about me because at the end of the day, why are you thinking about me? And I'm like, that is real. So it's just like, if somebody has that much energy invested in what you're doing, then you won anyway.
You're doing something right.
Yeah. So it's like, just go for it. That's what I would say.
Yes. Do you have any upcoming performances, interviews, or anything upcoming that you would like to promote?
No, I'm just at the moment promoting my book. If anybody is interested in purchasing a book, I am working on my website, but it's not up yet. So it's just through direct messages on Instagram or Facebook at the moment under CC Speaks. And it's CC Speaks 4 on Instagram.
So y'all heard the lady. Make sure y'all DM to get yourself a copy. It is a great read and you'll definitely won't regret it. Thank you again, CC Speaks.
Thank you,
for
Nicki
joining
D.
me and being our first out of town guest.
I am so happy to be here.
Is there anything else you want to say before we close it out?
Just that I really appreciate you. I love what you're doing in your shy girl thing. I think that is awesome because just in the name of that, it just really reminds us that, you know, or former shy girl, that you overcame something just in your name. So I love that.
Thank you so much.
I do. All right. Well, thank you for having me.
No doubt. And thank you everybody who's watching right now, the live, and everybody who's going to catch the replay. Follow her. CC Speaks. Follow her. Grab her book. And I'll see you next week for another episode of Behind the Stanzas with Nicki D. Bye.
Bye.